Welcome to the Vermont DEC Ecosystem Restoration Program Grant Application Training. My name is David Pasco. I am the Grants Management Specialist here at Vermont DEC for the Ecosystem Restoration Program, and today we are going to be talking about the 2015 Grant Application Round 2 of 2. The grant application can be found on our website along with all the supporting documents that I'll be discussing today. Our website is www.watershedmanagement.vt.us. This grant round of proposals is due at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 10th, 2014. Any late or incomplete applications will not be accepted. I'm going to walk you through some of the guidelines for the application to start with, and then we'll get into the application itself. These grants are supported by capital construction funds contained in the fiscal year 2015 state budget, and the Ecosystem Restoration Program goals in awarding these funds is to restore and protect rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, and wetlands from unregulated non-point source runoff and erosion containing nutrient and sediment pollution. Typical project sizes range from $10,000 to $75,000. And all proposals will be evaluated on a competitive basis. The funding for these projects is contingent upon the competitive award process, the availability of our capital construction funds, the regional priorities described in the tactical basin plans, and regional diversity. The Ecosystem Restoration Program strongly favors eligible projects that are identified in the Vermont DEC Tactical Basin Plans. A map of the Vermont River basins and links to contact information for watershed coordinators in each basin is included here in the application. All applicants must contact their respective watershed coordinators during the preparation of proposals. They will help to ensure that the project proposals target major problem areas that are contributing to the surface water pollution. Vermont municipalities, regional organizations, nonprofit associations, citizen groups, and state agencies are all eligible to submit an application. Any individuals, for-profit entities, and federal agencies are not eligible directly, but may partner with any of the eligible sponsors if they'd like to submit a proposal. Please note that a single organization or municipality as a primary applicant may submit up to 2 proposals, each containing 1 project. If any of those same organizations may be sub-applicants in other proposals. Additionally, that the 2 application limit does not apply to easement proposals due to the small number of organizations statewide that are involved in easement development. Note that all respondents to this RFP need to agree to the state of Vermont customary provisions in order to execute a contractor grant for this project. These provisions are included on our website, and I encourage you to review them before submitting an application. As I mentioned earlier, all proposals are due by 4:30 p.m. on Monday, November 10th. They need to be emailed to me. My email address is included here in the application. I will give you my contact information at the end of this presentation as well. I'm now going to get into the application itself. This is a Word document that you can download from our website. As you go through the Word document, you will see red text. Anywhere there is red text is a spot where we expect you to include an answer. As you go through it and you hover over the red text, you will see a gray box. And when you select it, it turns blue, and you can type in your answer to the question. To start with, in the cover page, we ask for your project title, your location, both the town and the county. We ask you to select the watershed in which your project is located from the drop-down list. If your project is in more than one basin, You may select multiple basins, and then we encourage you to describe in more detail what those basins are in the description of your project later on. Choose from one of the project categories. In Section 5, we are asking to ensure that you have contacted your watershed coordinator. And again, we have a link so you can find the correct watershed coordinator to contact. We have 3 funding categories with this grant round. Project feasibility, scoping, and design will be targeted with about 15% of the grant funds. 70% of the grant funds that we have available will be targeted towards implementation projects, and about 15% of the grant funds will be targeted towards easements projects. Section 7 is asking for basic applicant information, your organization, address, and program contacts. Please include a map with the location of the project, and this can be included as an additional attachment in the email that you send to me with your application. Select the type of organization, and then enter the amount of funding that you're requesting from the Ecosystem Restoration Program. Please be sure that this amount that you are requesting matches the budget amounts that you put in later in the application process. That concludes that section of the application. The next section addresses eligibility. In order to be eligible to receive Ecosystem Restoration Program funds, you need to meet all of the following criteria. First, your project must reduce nutrient and sediment pollution. Second, your project must address unregulated non-point sources. That means that your project must be designed to control runoff that is not required by a regulatory permit, and that includes an MS4 stormwater permit, or that is protected by regulation, such as a Class 2 wetland. Your project must be considered eligible for capital construction funds. Your project must include a stewardship commitment, and this will assure that the project will meet its functional life. Your project timeline. So your project must be completed within a 2-year time frame. You must confirm that you have either viewed the recorded training webinar or reviewed the frequently asked questions document. I encourage that you do both. The frequently asked questions document contains many answers to questions that people commonly ask. And finally, you must demonstrate that you have identified and secured commitments from local supporters, municipalities, and/or landowners for your project. And this can be included as additional attachments to your application. That is our eligibility section. We'll now get into the application itself. In the application, this is the part in which the review committee will be ranking all of the applications. The first question is your project consistent with the tactical basin planning? Here we're asking you to include information of how your project is in line with the tactical basin plan or other state sanctioned plan. Please include direct references, including page numbers where appropriate. And note that lower priority projects that aren't directly referenced in tactical basin plans are still eligible, but are considered a low priority for Ecosystem Restoration Program funding. And again, we include a link here to the frequently asked questions for some more details. Number 2 is a project description. So provide a description of your project, including the threats or issues that are being addressed, as well as the detail on the location of the project. Number 3, explain the water quality benefits of your project, including how the project will improve water quality, why the work is necessary, and how it meets the goals of restoring and protecting rivers, streams, lakes, ponds, and wetlands from unregulated non-point source runoff and erosion-containing nutrient and sediment pollution. Section 4, we'd like you to describe in more detail about your project stewardship commitment and be sure to include the entity that will be responsible for carrying out the agreement. Section 5 is the Act 110 Flood Resilience and Clean Water Credit. So projects that are in municipalities that have taken the step for adopting river corridor floodplain and/or shoreline protection bylaws to reduce flood hazards will be eligible for up to 10 points. We've included a link to a list of municipalities that are eligible for this credit. Only the municipalities on this list will receive the credit. If you have more questions about this and the Act 110 credit, I encourage you to look at the frequently asked questions. There's more detail there, as well as contact information if you believe that your municipality should be included on this list. The scope of work, budget, and project costs. Here we'd like you to complete this performance measures and deliverable table. We need to ensure that you include certain deliverables. One, a press release that is required for all state grants, a short blog article, a stewardship commitment, and a final report. There's also a reference here to the Ecosystem Restoration Performance Standards. This is a new document that we have created to help provide guidance for applicants in drafting their performance measures. I'm going to show that document to you now. The first page of this document explains how to use it in more detail. I encourage you to look at that. I'm going to talk you through a little bit of this right now. The idea behind this guidance document is that we have selected a variety of project types that are commonly seeking funding from the Ecosystem Restoration Program. So as you think about your project, you can select your project type from the list, and as you move across the document, you can see some example performance measures for riparian planting projects and associated deliverables with those performance measures. And as we look across the document, you can also see measures of success. These are quantitative evaluations for the performance measures that you've selected. And then the final column lists some criteria that the Ecosystem Restoration Program looks at when we consider funding projects of this type. I will move back to these performance measures and project type list. There are several performance measures listed for each project type. All do not need to be included for a project of this type. These are suggestions that could be used while you're developing your performance measures and deliverables during the application development process. They are not required. They are, this again is a guidance document to help you in drafting those. We're going to jump back to our application now. I encourage you to use that guidance document when you're developing this table. We then ask for your anticipated completion date with the understanding that this may change depending on the granting of the funds. We then ask for an itemized budget. By filling in this table, we're asking you to put in your request into this column. This total should match the requested funds, any other funds that will be part of the project, any other funds that you are considering to be matched, and then your total project budget. So we look at the line items that we'd like to be itemized out. We have personnel, so this includes any labor costs that are going to be directly charged by your organization, any benefits associated with those labor costs, any travel associated with your project, any equipment that will be purchased, supplies, any subcontracted work. And for this line item, we encourage you to attach additional detail behind these subcontracts amount or provide them in the budget narrative. The construction line is for any construction contracts. And again, we also encourage you to provide the detail behind these line items. Other is for any other expenses, any other direct expenses, and then your indirect. In the budget narrative, we'd like you to describe all of the costs listed in the itemized budget above. Specifically for personnel, we'd like to know the hourly rates and number of hours anticipated that you put into your budget, as well as similar details for each line item. Project match, we include how to calculate project match. Once you have calculated it, you can choose it from the drop-down list. And the final part of the application is the past performance. Describe your prior experience with implementing similar projects in the past 5 years. That's the last question of the main application. We do have one more section, Section D. So it is important for the state of Vermont to assess the risk involved in granting funding to certain organizations. So we're asking some questions that are related to risk here. These are not part of the evaluation or the ranking process. These are for the granting process, and any answers to these questions will help us expedite that. I encourage you to answer these to the best of your ability. If a question isn't applicable to your organization, please enter NA on that line so we know that you have read the question and have answered it. And that completes the application. Once you have filled in all the answers, you may save the document and then email it to me along with all of any additional information that you would like to include at this email address. And remember that all materials are due on Monday, November 10th by 4:30 p.m. And here is my contact information, and again, my email address, in case you have any questions about the process as you fill out your application. Thank you very much for attending this training, and we look forward to seeing your applications on November 10th. Bye.